Looking to upgrade your comfort this season? Upgrade and save with the team at Legacy Heating and Air and Daikin. Right now, when you upgrade to select Daikin systems, you can receive up to $3,500 in rebates and incentives. The revolutionary Daikin Fit system is built to fit your space and your budget. And with flexible financing and payment plans to suit any budget, plus no payments or interest until 2026, an upgrade doesn't have to wait. This deal won't last long. Schedule your free in-home estimate today. Visit LegacyHeatingandAirInc.com to view exclusive offers and get qualified now.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Football Never Sleeps, the weekly live YouTube show from Inside Indy Sports, brought to you by the fine folks at Legacy Heating and Air. This is the first ever solo Football Never Sleeps. I apologize for not joining and making this happen earlier this week, but I was busy traveling to cover the Rivals 5-star here in Jacksonville, Florida. Couldn't find a good time to sit down and do this, but I figured I'd give it a shot tonight from my hotel here in Jacksonville, and we'll have a chance to talk about what I saw and heard this week. Please bear with me if I'm having Wi-Fi issues. We're dealing with hotel Wi-Fi here, which is always a little bit of a gamble. I've actually set up here in one of the conference rooms that us Rivals folks have been using this week. So hopefully that gives us the best chance of staying online and live here. As always, I can't forget our usual YouTube reminders. Please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel here. Hit the bell for reminders for future shows. And when we have other content, like the videos I've put together from the guys here at the Rivals 5-star, and make sure you hit the like button to show support for the show. I'm going to certainly be relying on a lot of questions from this chat tonight because I don't have anyone else to talk to but you guys. So please don't be shy if you're new to the YouTube process. Make sure you're either on the website or the app so you can access the chat. The chat box should be on the right-hand side. If you're on a desktop version of some kind, and it should be below my talking head if you're on a mobile device. Lastly, if you're not a subscriber to our website, we hope you consider taking advantage of the 30-day free trial we continue to offer to our YouTube audience. For you, InsideNDSports.com, promo code is NDYT. You sign up, you get free access to our premium analysis and recruiting coverage and special access to us over on the Insider Lounge, which is where we spend a lot of our time and share our inside information first. That's where I had updates on 5 Notre Dame commits and 10 more targets from the Rivals 5-star earlier this week that were exclusive to our Inside Indy Sports subscribers and audience. So if you're not a subscriber to the site, please consider doing so. There's a link to sign up for the deal in the video description below. And let's get going. Bear with me as I'm the one doing everything solo tonight. So if I have awkward pauses and stuff, I apologize. I'm even going to try to place a video for you guys tonight from the camp that I captured. If you haven't watched that, you'll be able to see some of the clips of the Notre Dame commits in action at Tuesday or Wednesday's camp. So we'll have a chance to talk about those guys. Like I said, there were 5 recruits or 5 Notre Dame commits who participated in this Rivals 5-star event in Jacksonville. They arrived on Tuesday and spoke to reporters and then competed in a camp on Wednesday at the indoor facility for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which was pretty cool. Got cut a little bit short with a thunderstorm in the area, but that was only towards the end of the camp, and a pretty good day and a lot of work for the guys that were out there, and it was nice to see what those guys were up to. So let me see if I can get this to work as intended. I've already shared these clips on YouTube, so you can make sure you go to watch those full videos if you haven't already. But I'll be able to have them playing behind me if this works as I hope here. And so while I'm talking about the guys, you can also see some of the stuff that I saw as well. So let me work on that here for a second. Please give me a chance to do this. All right. All right, here we go. So first up, we have here Duce Knight, as you can see. Hopefully that is working for you guys. Let me take this off the screen, and you guys can see that. So Duce Knight obviously was here. He's had a really impressive off season in terms of what he's been able to do at a number of different camp settings, 7-on-7 tournaments at the OT7 finals, took his team to the championship game, competed in the Elite 11, was one of the best quarterbacks out there by most observers' opinions. And I thought he was pretty elite again this week. He looked really good. He was pretty consistently accurate in the one-on-ones that you're seeing right now on the screen. And he had a lot of success in the 7-on-7 as well. He was throwing guys open. He was throwing to guys in tight coverage and letting them make plays. I think there were times where Deuce can struggle with his accuracy a little bit, but that was pretty minimal from what I saw. He struggled a little bit in the accuracy competition that they held in the middle of the camp. It included some targets you had to throw like out to the corners of the end zone, and then there were some dummies that you were supposed to hit in the back of the end zone, and he only hit one of the four, which was on the lower end of what the other guys, the other top quarterbacks here were doing. I think he scored a 6 in that portion of the accuracy competition. I think he got like 4 points for hitting one in the net on a side, and then I think 2 for hitting one in the middle, and then I think 14 was the best score of that portion. That was Tavian St. Clair, the Ohio State quarterback commit, who did that. Noah Grubs, who was also, I'll get to a little bit later, he was also here, Notre Dame's 2026 commit at quarterback, and he also scored a 6, so similar for the two of them. I also was interested in seeing Duce Knight's sort of long throw. That was part of the quarterback competition. And I got back there. I was even talking to one of our Rivals video guys. He's like, I don't know how far to go back. And I was like, well, Deuce threw 174 yards, he told me, at this camp in Mississippi last week. So we better back up. So I was standing 70 yards away. But unfortunately, the one that Deuce threw for the actual competition that counted, they only let them throw once, slipped out of his hand. So it went like 40-some yards. It didn't even go 50 yards. So he was disappointed in that. So he still threw another one, but it didn't count. And that one went 68 yards. So that was an impressive throw. Nonetheless, Tavian St. Clair, the Ohio State commit, threw 170. So that was the one that actually counted. That was the longest. But he looked pretty good. Obviously, there's plenty of talent there. And, I mean, I think it's important to remember when we're seeing these things that Duce Knight is doing. None of this is utilizing the athletic ability that he has in terms of being a runner and making plays with his feet, which is certainly a part of his game as well. He's not someone that's going to rely on that constantly, but he does not have any fear to do that. And so I thought Duce Knight had a pretty strong performance. He teamed with Keelan Russell, who's Alabama's quarterback commit, who just came off winning the Elite 11 MVP from the Elite 11 staff, and their team won the 7-on-7 portion of the event here at the Rivals 5-Star. That was John Garcia Jr., one of our national analysts, was in charge of helping lead that team. And I was like, man, you really hit the jackpot with those two quarterbacks. That was pretty easy for you. So they were pretty competitive, and I thought they both played well, and I thought Deuce held his own as with someone who's considered one of the top quarterbacks in the country, and all these guys that were here are among the top quarterbacks in the country. So that was a good performance for him. All right, let's talk a little bit about Noah Grubs. I have footage of him as well. Let me pull that up here. All right, so here's Noah on the screen now. Noah, I thought looked very well. I was complimenting the organizers because they had both Noah Grubs and Duce Knight working on the same end of the field while they were doing these one-on-ones. So I was just going from side to side, getting film of these guys doing their throws. I thought Noah looked pretty good in these one-on-ones. There was a little bit of an overthrow there, and he was pretty accurate from that. I think he had more success in the one-on-ones that he did on the 7-on-7. I wasn't able to follow him as much on the 7-on-7 because he wasn't on the same team, and I was following Duce Knight, who also had Dallas Golden on his team. So, Jeff, I'll talk a little bit about Dallas Golden when we get to him as well. And also thank you for joining your dedicated Football Never Sleeps attendee, and appreciate the questions as always. So Noah Grubs, like I said, from what I had heard, I didn't get to see him do as much 7-on-7, although I did see a little bit. He was a little late and hesitant on some throws in that setting, but that's not necessarily surprising or the worst thing in the world when you're talking about a team that was put together that day, guys that he's never played with before, and he himself, Noah, was a late addition to the Rivals 5-star, and he made the drive up from Lake Mary, Florida, to compete, and so he was happy to be here and be competitive here. If we watch the stats, you can sort of see what I'm talking about. Like, he just was sort of struggling to find guys open, and not necessarily being on time with some throws and not necessarily knowing where to go. And it can certainly be tough here. Like, when you look at these red zone opportunities, there's not a lot of space for guys to get open and know where to throw the ball, with guys that maybe don't have a chemistry with, can be a little bit difficult there. So I liked what I saw from Noah. It sort of backed up what we saw from him up at the Irish Invasion earlier this month, which was the day after he announced his commitment to Notre Dame. So the future is certainly bright as it relates to Notre Dame's quarterback position. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us. Eric is certainly okay. He's enjoying some vacation. He and I are taking turns sort of alternating on vacation. I'll be on vacation next week, but he'll be back for Football Never Sleeps next week, and I believe he has a guest already lined up for that. So hopefully he can take care of you guys next week as I enjoy a little bit of time off, and then we'll get through July, and before we know it, they'll be starting up fall camp, and Football Never Sleeps will be about real football and not us just talking about it here during the summer. Next up, I want to talk about Dallas Golden. So let me pull his video up here. And as I said earlier, if you haven't seen these clips and you want to watch them again, you can on the YouTube page here. Mute that. Yeah, we don't want that sound. So this was my first time getting to see Dallas Golden in person, competing. Obviously, I've seen him around on campus when he makes visits and stuff like that. He doesn't do a lot of camps and hasn't in the last year, so it was really great that he wanted to get to this event and compete against some of the top guys in the country. I thought he looked pretty good. You can see here, like, here's one that he got beat deep on, and there were a couple times where he was beat deep for some completions. I think some may have been miscommunications with his teammates and not necessarily knowing who was helping or if he should stick with the guy and maybe some zone looks. But whenever he was asked to run with someone, he was pretty much running side by side with him. And the clips we're watching here are him covering 5-star wide receiver Winston Watkins Jr. And that catch there was one of I think maybe the only one I saw him make when I was watching this game. Dallas was running with him all over the place. It was a bit of a lopsided game, so I think there was some frustration on the other team as Dallas Golden and Duce Knight's team were winning pretty handily here. But Dallas had some opportunities. I think when the lead was getting high that he didn't have to necessarily stick with him in man, and they were maybe playing some softer zone. But I think Dallas Golden is a very intriguing and exciting athlete for Notre Dame. I think he's still tapping into his cornerback abilities, but certainly is a very good player out in the secondary, can run with guys, isn't afraid to play press. So I think there's a lot to like there in terms of what Notre Dame has in the 4-star cornerback out of Tampa, Florida. So good to see him get out on the field and play against some of these top wide receivers in the country, because I think more than anything, I think quarterback might be one of the hardest positions to play in a camp setting like this, because you're playing against really good receivers. There's not a lot of help, especially in the one-on-one situations. It can be really challenging. So I thought he more than held his own and made a good case to potentially move up even higher in the Rivals 250. So Jeff, yeah, you asked about Dallas Golden. What were his strengths and his size a problem? I don't think – here, let me get this off of here. I don't think size is necessarily a problem for Dallas Golden. He's not the biggest, but I do think that he makes up with it with some strength and certainly his athleticism. I think I'd be interested to see if could he be a nickelback kind of player. I know sometimes that might feel like it's insulting, but I think the more and more we see college football advance and passing games advance, like a nickelback is a starting player now. So that's not to be a slight to him. I just think he has some intriguing skills that maybe can apply to that nickel position, but certainly I think he could play outside as well. It's not like he would have to play nickelback to have some chance to play at a high level. So I think he looks good to me. Yeah, as Brian says, I think he has longer arms. I think he probably has a pretty good wingspan for his height. And I'm not terribly concerned. I think just in terms of his strengths, just that athleticism, he's a playmaker. He's a big-time player on offense as well in high school, and I think that's going to help him at the next level. We'll see what he can do when he gets to Notre Dame, but plays good competition down in Florida and is very excited and locked in with Notre Dame. He was I talked to all these guys in Dallas. He's very happy with his decision. His family really appreciates Notre Dame, and they really enjoyed the official visit that Dallas was able to make earlier this month and get to enjoy some nice weather in South Bend, which hasn't always been the case when Dallas Golden's been on campus for previous visits. But we have a very small window of nice weather up there in northern Indiana, and this June has been one of them. All right, let me get to some of the film of Owen Strebig. All right, here's Owen and the first clips you'll see. Let me mute that again. Sorry about that, folks. The first clips you'll see here are actually going against fellow Notre Dame commit Christopher Burgess. Don't have as many clips here. It was hard to – they have few. It was also hard with everything. Both these things were going on at the same time at one point, and so I didn't get as many clips as I'd like to. But Owen was definitely very active and wanting to get into whatever situations he could. I really like the mindset that Owen came into the camp. Like, look at that play there. Like, that's not something that you want to show people. But he knows that those kinds of things happen. I mean, technically, like in an event like this, I'm pretty sure they just redid the rep because you're not supposed to bull rush. And so I think that there are some limitations to what they want the defensive lineman to do because it's not exactly the fairest when the offensive linemen don't have pads on it and pads available to put their hands on to block a player. So Owen actually had a clip go a bit viral earlier this year when he got sort of run over by Justin Hill, who I think is likely to commit to Ohio State here soon. And he was well aware of that. He knows that there's a chance he can get embarrassed on a stage like this, but he's not afraid of that. He sees everything as a learning opportunity. He says that if he gets his butt kicked, there's something that he can learn and try to do to fix that in the future. So I think it's fair to say I'll play those clips again since there are so few of them. He didn't go out and dominate, but that's really hard to do for offensive lineman events like this. I thought he held his own pretty well. I think towards the end of the camp he was getting a little bit tired and was playing too high. He has tremendous length. I think he needs to work to use that more to his strengths. I think he could get a lot stronger. But he was getting after it, taking reps anywhere he could. I was like, hey, you going to take some tackle reps? Because he was playing some guard. And then as soon as I saw him, I was like, hey, I'm getting some tackle reps. Get over here. So he's willing to take on whatever he has to do to get some more opportunities to learn. And I think there's a lot there to like that Joe Rudolph can mold into a really potentially high-level offensive lineman at the college level. It's interesting because the insistence that I saw Brian's comment, about Joe Halt, that Owen showed in wanting to be out there no matter what position he was playing, I think was shared by Christopher Burgess, and that's pretty obvious if you watch these clips that I have here, because he was taking reps wherever he could. You've seen these reps already, but we'll play them again. They went at, I really like that they went. Those were the first one-on-one reps they had during the camp. So that was interesting to see them go at it. And obviously out of position with Burgess playing defensive tackle and Strebig playing offensive guard. I thought Strebig got the better of him there, but Burgess has been consistent in his whenever I ask him about these kinds of camps, about what he wants to achieve or prove about himself, and he wants a fifth star, and he wants to prove that he deserves it. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen, at least following this camp. I think he still has a ways to go in terms of learning pass rush intricacies, expanding his options in terms of his skill set there. He's still working on that. I think he's used to being able to rely on his speed and strength against the opponents he sees at the high school level, but when he gets in these camp settings, it's difficult. I do think he's a better football player than a camp player right now, which is fine. I mean, no, he's not coming to Notre Dame to attend camps. He's coming to Notre Dame to play football. But I like the growth that I've seen in him. I really like the frame and attitude that he plays with. And I think there's plenty to work with there for Al Washington. And I think he's clearly the best defensive line commit in Notre Dame's class, as our rankings suggest. I just don't know that he's going to climb even higher. I think he's in the 30s right now. He's the highest ranked commit in Notre Dame's class. And I don't know if he'll remain there. I think Duce Knight is making a good case to potentially jump above him, but we'll see how things play out as the rankings get updated. All right. Let me see what questions you guys may have had here. Jeff, which of the 5 of the camp might be early enrollees? I don't know that for sure. I'm pretty sure Owen is, because he's like, I think it's 200 days until he comes to Notre Dame. He already has a days countdown until when he'll be an early enrollee with the Irish. And so I think probably a good chunk of them are, but I have not asked them about that. It seems too far off for me to think about. But I mean, anymore, it seems like just this freshman class for Notre Dame right now, more are early enrollees than traditional enrollees, and I think that's probably a trend we'll see continue. I don't know the status of what everyone's planning for this 2025 class, but I would imagine it's pretty heavy in that direction. All right, I thought we could talk a little bit about some of the targets that were here that I had a chance to speak with. We'll talk about Nathaniel Usu Boateng later, because I'm going to get into some talk about just the rest of the 2025 cycle. But for this part, let's focus on the 2026 guys I was able to talk to. I hope to have stories out on these guys in the coming days. I had notes on them on the Insider Lounge message board for our subscribers back on Tuesday. The biggest piece of news that came was from linebacker target Simeon Caldwell, who will visit in July. He let me know that he had that visit scheduled. He visited Notre Dame in April. I was told following that visit that Notre Dame would be a major player there, and certainly is following through on that. He's the number 10 offensive linebacker, or outside linebacker, offensive linebacker in the 2026 class. And the son of, I believe it's Mike Caldwell is his name. His dad is an NFL coach. I think he's a linebackers coach for the Las Vegas Raiders currently. He was previously the defensive coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So an NFL influence there, which certainly we have seen that the guys that have NFL ties, Notre Dame has had a lot of success recruiting those guys lately. So I think Caldwell certainly falls into that category as a potential name to watch in the 2026 class. He's a smaller guy. I think he's around 200 pounds right now. And so I think he's more of like a potential rover on his current path. Now, obviously, he's still going into his junior year, so a lot can change between now and the time he's asked to make plays on a football field at the college level. But a guy that's played some safety and I think projects best as a linebacker at the next level, and that's what Notre Dame's recruiting him at. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I was just catching up on some comments here to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. Thanks for joining, Blyberg. Um, I'm interested to see if Strebig can stay at tackle. I think he has the length to. I think he. I guess my question would be if people don't think he's a tackle, I think his strength is an issue, and so I don't know that that's going to help him at guard. I don't necessarily see someone that's like, oh, that guy's clearly a guard. Um, okay, Blyberg's saying that it's about his slow feet. Will Black is a tackle. I would agree that Will Black is. And I don't know that anyone would argue that, but I think there's a chance that Owen could stick as an offensive tackle. But we'll see how that continues to play out and how he continues to develop. Getting back to some of the 2026 targets that I talked to, I was interested to speak with Braylon Womack, the safety, who was very high on Notre Dame following his Irish invasion offer. Ohio State followed that with an offer as well when he camped there, and that's one he was certainly excited about too. We'll see if he gets back in July as he had previously hoped. Tennessee has a visit planned. He has a visit planned to Tennessee on July 25th. So he's if he doesn't get back to Notre Dame at the end of July when the dead period ends, I think he'll eventually get back there. He wants to get back with his mom and sister. His dad and uncle joined him last time. Womack is the number 4 safety in the 2026 class. Whereas there is a lot of safeties that are elite that are interested in Notre Dame. Zach Fort, the number 5 safety in the class, wants to get back to Notre Dame for a visit after being impressed by the Irish in March. He plays at IMG Academy. He's originally from California. Jazavian Currents, the number 6 safety, visited Notre Dame earlier this month alongside former cornerback Nick McLeod. Nick McLeod transferred to Notre Dame for just one season after playing at NC State, but it has very fond feelings about the Irish. And the connection there, is that they're both from Rock Hill, South Carolina. So he being Jazavian wants to get back to Notre Dame for a game. Seemed very impressed with the Irish. He said looking at the Golden Dome, it didn't look real. So he really enjoyed his time on campus. In terms of safeties, the number 1 safety, Zealous Hicks, is at least expressing interest in Notre Dame. It sounds like he may make a commitment decision in July. And so if that happens, it won't be for Notre Dame. He's not visited Notre Dame previously. But he was also sort of like, hey, that's not necessarily the end of my recruitment. So he's interested in Notre Dame because the way it unfolded, he was actually speaking to another reporter, and I heard him talking about that. And so I was like, well, let me at least ask him, because I was like, if you're going to decide, you're probably not that interested in Notre Dame. He's like, no, I am interested in Notre Dame. So that would be someone to potentially watch, but I wouldn't get your hopes up too much. But at least we'll keep that name in mind. Offensive tackle Kevin Brown, I really liked. I hope to put together a little bit of a clips package on him, because I did get some footage of him while watching Owen and Christopher. Kevin Brown really likes Joe Rudolph. Brown is from Pennsylvania. I think Penn State is probably going to be tough to beat there, but he wants to get to Notre Dame and see a game. We'll see if that happens. The number 7 offensive tackle in the 2026 class. A really well put together prospect. Frankly, kind of almost skinny compared to most offensive linemen, but he's got a nasty attitude. He's very confident. Nasty attitude in a good way, the kind you want to have as a football player, especially on your offensive line. So I really liked what I saw from him. He even took some reps. Nathaniel Usu-Boateng came over to do some pass rush against the offensive line, and him and Brown were going at it and arguing over who was winning which rep and those kinds of things. So I appreciated that. Kosi Akpala is someone that mentioned. Kosi is from Texas. I believe it's Houston, if my memory serves. He has not made a college visit outside of the state of Texas yet, but he did mention Notre Dame and Alabama as 2 of the schools that he wants to visit outside of the state. He's the number 2 offensive I did it again, outside linebacker in the 2026 class. Notre Dame has been recruiting him as a Viper. He's very intrigued by the Irish. Speaks with defensive coordinator Al Golden and defensive line coach Al Washington, and wants to see if he can get on campus. It sounds to me like if that happens, it might not be until he makes an official visit. If it gets to that point. So I wouldn't necessarily look for him to be on campus in the fall for a game or something like that. But you never know. Something could come together where he's able to pull that off. But he's a very fluid, explosive athlete that is a little bit undersized. And so I'm curious to see how he continues to grow and what his future is in terms of position at the college level. But he is a little bit undersized, but he was running with running backs when he was covering them. So he's definitely a very good athlete. Let me see what questions we got here. Brian asked, who surprised you at this camp? I don't know. It's hard to surprise at a camp when they're all supposed to be so good. I guess just seeing – or I guess here's the one that I just didn't know much about, to be frank. It's not like I thought lowly of him. Desan Brame, and I could be butchering his name. He's a tight end, a 2025 tight end out of Kansas. He was very impressive. He was on Duce Knight's 7-on-7 team, and Deuce was throwing to him with regularity, and they were really making it tough on defenses. And I think he has a bright future from what I saw in the small sample this week. But he's a 4-star recruit, and certainly isn't someone that people don't know about. But at least me as a Notre Dame reporter and someone that hasn't had like a lot of traction with Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's already got its tight end. That was a bit of a surprise for me. Some other guys that stood out, Kevin Brown, like I mentioned, Jakeem Stewart, he's the number one guy in the 2026 class. I think he lived up to that hype. He was the one, I think if we went back and watched the Owen Strebig highlights, I think it was the last person that Owen Strebig, maybe it was the second last person, whatever. I'm just confusing you. But if you go back and watch it, it's clearly labeled who it is. But he was getting after it as well. He was the one that put Owen on his back. So very strong kid, even if it was doing a pass rush that I don't think was supposed to be involved in this. Another guy I liked a lot, Emmanuel Iheanacho. I'm probably messing up his last name as well. A kid out of, I believe, the Baltimore area that Notre Dame has, I think, visited his school, but I don't know that Notre Dame has offered. He's the real deal. I think he's elite. He's ranked very highly in the 2026 class right now. I'll be interested to see if Notre Dame can get into that recruitment. If that's someone that is interested in Notre Dame and Notre Dame is interested, I don't know why they wouldn't be interested in him unless there's a feeling that he can't cut it in terms of grades, but doesn't seem like someone that has that issue. He seemed like a pretty smart kid from my discussions, just listening to him talk and stuff like that. So, but he was very, very good. I think in the clips of Christopher Burgess, you see him going against Emmanuel, and Emmanuel was taking care of Christopher Burgess pretty good because he's a very thick, strong dude, even though he's just in the 2026 class. All right, I wanted to talk about the remaining targets in the 2025 class. Please feel free to submit questions for these guys. Brian, I keep track of all these guys. First of all, I do have notes that I have handy. I'm not doing this all off the top of my head. So that helps me. Yeah, just when you spend so much time watching these kids and trying to figure out where they're going and figure out all those things, it just sort of gets lodged in your brain. At least it does for me. I always said, like, I used to remember all kinds of different things, but now it's just recruiting information. Like, I can remember high schools of kids that I have no business of remembering their high school, but it gets logged in my brain, and then I'll forget something that probably would be more useful. But at least you guys value me having that ability to remember some of those things. But then I'll forget where I put my keys or something like that back at home. All right, so as it relates to Notre Dame's 2025 recruiting cycle, the list of guys that Notre Dame is still after is pretty short. Basically 4 receivers, 2 linebackers, and a safety. I know on the heat index on the Insider Lounge, I still have Gavin Nix listed at linebacker because I think Notre Dame could circle back in that recruitment if it doesn't get both of those guys, but we'll see what happens there. But for all intents and purposes, Gavin Nix isn't really of importance at this point. So let's start with the receivers, since there was a little bit of news on that front this week. John Anthony Hall will announce his commitment decision on Friday. He's a 3-star wide receiver out of the Indianapolis area. I don't expect him to pick Notre Dame, despite him making an official visit earlier this month. He also made official visits to Northwestern, Stanford, Indiana, and Purdue. I put a future cast prediction in today for Stanford, and so we'll see if I have a good read on that. But I think that's where he is likely to end up. Just an interesting recruitment because you felt like a guy from Indiana that Notre Dame pulls the trigger on later in the recruiting cycle. It's like, oh, well, this guy's probably going to end up coming to Notre Dame. But coming out of his visit, there was never like, hey, we feel great about this. Notre Dame likes him and would like to have him in the class. But just something, for whatever reason, I don't know, that maybe didn't click. John Anthony spoke highly of it, of Notre Dame when Eric Hansen interviewed him. But it doesn't seem like that was the path that he wanted to take for his college career, and we'll see what path he chooses when he announces. I believe it's at noon Eastern on Friday, so I think I will be in the air when that is happening. But we'll make sure that I'm either hooked up to Wi-Fi or keeping you guys updated on the Insider Lounge to know what's going on there. The other 3 receivers that Notre Dame's still going after: Derek Meadows, Tanook Hines, and Dylan Robinson. I still think that Notre Dame can land all 3 of those guys. However, I don't think any of them are someone that's like, okay, Notre Dame's got this one in the bag. Notre Dame can exhale. I think Notre Dame's still fighting for all of those guys and in a fight for all of them. I still have a future cast in for Meadows to Notre Dame. I just don't have a great sense that someone else is beating Notre Dame clearly. But again, there's been a big pushes from Michigan, big push from Alabama. We'll see if sort of the length of his recruitment with Notre Dame plays in Notre Dame's favor. I think what's frustrating for Notre Dame fans, and I understand, is that Notre Dame has had so many wide receivers, or has so many good quarterback recruits: C.J. Carr, Duce Knight, Noah Grubs, but the receivers aren't necessarily following quite yet. I do think this coming season could help Notre Dame's receiver recruiting if they show a dynamic offense. If what Mike Denbrock brings as the new offensive coordinator is a better passing attack, I think that can go a long way for Notre Dame moving forward. But that probably isn't going to play a big role with these receivers that Notre Dame is recruiting now, because some of these guys, if not all of these guys, may be committed to a school, whether it's Notre Dame or somewhere else, before the season really gets going this fall. So I haven't made predictions yet for Hines and Robinson. I think I'd like to. If I plan to, I don't know if I can do it before the end of the week, but maybe submit predictions, especially if I'm going on vacation next week. If all these guys are going to make their decisions, whether it's for Notre Dame or someone else, I'd like to have predictions in. So we'll see. I'll try to get some more information at the end of this week to see where I think things are heading for all these guys that are still in Notre Dame's class, because I don't have predictions in for a few of these guys still. 2 that I do have predictions in, and both in Notre Dame's favor, are Madden Faremo and Nathaniel Usu-Boateng, the linebackers that Notre Dame really covets. Certainly, Texas gave Faremo more to think about, but I still like the Irish in that recruitment. I think that's one that Notre Dame can still pull out. I'm less confident in Usu-Boateng, but that was always the case. That's not like a new development. even though I put a future cast in for both of them, I felt more confident in Faremo than I did Owusu Boateng. Justin, I don't get that sense. I spoke to Nathaniel at length, and he was not saying that. I know he was hinting at news coming soon, and that was releasing a top 5, but it was basically a top 5 that he had essentially disclosed to me previously when we were talking about his official visits. He's like, yeah, these are the 4 I'll make official visits to, and Florida's the 5th that I'm maybe take one to in the fall. And so that was basically a top 5 already, but we'll see if that's what happens. But he's a hard read, both publicly and behind the scenes. He speaks highly of all of his finalists. I think Michigan and USC are both legitimate threats to Notre Dame right now. Less so Ohio State. I don't get the sense that Ohio State is really in great shape with Owusu Boateng, but certainly I could just be misreading that as well. He is playing things very close to the vest. He will praise everyone and sort of praises them if you watch what he says or listen to what he says, read what he says about different schools. He says similar things about different schools. And so I think that it only makes it harder to get a sense for what he's truly thinking because that's what's going on. Yeah, Justin, you could be you may be right or wrong. I don't know. At least the sense that I got down here, and this is where Nathaniel was the last few days, didn't seem like there was a decision upcoming. I think he had teased like news coming soon, and even his half brother Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa was like, "What's going on?" But that was just the top 5 that he was releasing. So I don't think there'll be a commitment coming from him soon. I think there is a chance that he commits maybe by September or something. When it initially seemed to be December as the likely commitment date, but I think that is very fluid. He was not willing to sort of give me any sort of timeline in terms of what he wants to do there. Lastly, Jadon Blair. I really like where Notre Dame's at with the safety out of North Carolina. I haven't put a future cast in yet, but I want to make one more call before I make that decision there. But I feel really good about where Notre Dame's at. I think that Notre Dame continues to be sitting in the best spot for Blair. The Penn State visit was a hurdle that Notre Dame felt like it needed to get past to get Blair in the class. And we'll see if he decides to do so. He's been scheduled for a commitment decision on July 5th. So we'll know in about a week what Jadon Blair plans to do for sure. I think that's where things are going. All right, Jeff asked, Tyler, where does Notre Dame stand with Ivan Taylor? How long do you anticipate his commitment to be on shaky ground? The vibe that I got coming out of Ivan Taylor's official visit was that this was something that Notre Dame needed to continue to be worried about. Like he didn't sort of shut it down. He followed through with a visit to Michigan. But I think since then it doesn't seem like he's falling in love with any other school particularly. It's not, his uncertainty isn't driven by like, you know what, I really like this school. I think he's just wants to make sure he's exhausted all of his options and sort of give himself some more time to go through this process, which isn't what you're always looking for from a commit. But I mean, personally, as someone who like, it's not going to affect me like on a day-to-day basis what he decides to do, I would advise kids, take as many visits as you want and need. Obviously, the longer you do that, you risk the spots that you may have available to you. But I think Ivan's just wanting to make sure that he knows what he's going to do. So I think because of that, there is certainly a decent chance that he sticks in Notre Dame's class, that he doesn't decommit, that he sort of shuts things down eventually, and all is well that ends well. But I think Notre Dame still needs to continue to recruit him, make him understand why they feel like he's a fit for Notre Dame and why he chose Notre Dame to begin with, and continue to plug away there. That will be certainly worth monitoring because I think he's a very talented player and someone that Notre Dame needs to continue to try to get in it, to stay in his class. And I guess since we're on the sort of potential decommit topic, I'll talk about Duce Knight. I still think Notre Dame's safe, but I think Notre Dame would be wise to not get too comfortable, make sure that it continues to communicate with Deuce on a regular basis, which I don't know why they would ever not do that, even if he wasn't considering other schools, because that's how good he is. But he's not shutting down Ole Miss, but he's also not visiting Ole Miss. So as long as he doesn't follow through on a visit, I still think that Notre Dame's safe. Even if he does follow through on a visit, it's not impossible for him to still remain in Notre Dame's class. But I think then that's when I would start to get really worried if I were a Notre Dame fan to say, oh, man, we might be in trouble here. But in terms of everything he does, there's getting to campus constantly, recruiting others, looking out for other guys in the Notre Dame class. I just think that everything points to him sticking, and he's certainly behaving like someone who is heavily committed to the Irish. Brian asked, how many visits does Taylor have left? I know it doesn't matter. Like can send him on many college visits. Oh, Ike. I saw that as like. You no longer have to have you're no longer limited on the amount of official visits by the NCAA. You can only make one per school unless there's a head coaching change. Then you can make two a school. So when Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU and Marcus Freeman became the head coach, the guys that were committed under Brian Kelly were able and already used official visits were able to make official visits before the signing period to make sure that they were confident in Marcus Freeman. And that was a big part of Notre Dame being able to keep that recruiting class together. But he could take an official visit to every school that's willing to host them on an official visit. You're not limited to 5 like you used to be. Blyberg says Ole Miss's recruiting class is falling apart. Yeah, I even asked Deuce, like, do you follow Ole Miss recruiting? Do you know many of those guys? And he said, no, not really. So I thought that was kind of interesting. If he was seriously considering Ole Miss, you'd think he'd be a little bit more invested in what's going on there. But he doesn't seem to be, and he certainly is very invested in what's going on in Notre Dame's class. So, like I said, I think everything he's doing is indicating that he should stick with Notre Dame's class. All right, let's see. I think I have one more question in the queue. If you have any more questions, let me know. I don't have anything else left on my notes, so I will let you guys think if there's anything else you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be recruiting related either. It can be something beyond recruiting. Let's see. This comment from Southside Irish. I'm not sure who the other top three coaches other top football programs are in the other programs, but it's hard to complain about our head coach, OC, and DC, right? This is not a manifesto. Yeah, I mean, I think Notre Dame is in a very good position as it relates to its coaching staff in the future of the program, with Mike Denbrock as offensive coordinator, Al Golden as defensive coordinator, and Marcus Freeman as head coach. I still think, to be fair, that Marcus Freeman has some proving to do in terms of his work as a game day coach. Notre Dame has lost some games it shouldn't lose under Marcus Freeman. It struggled a little bit on the road under Marcus Freeman. So he has, I think, plenty to still learn. And I think he would be open to saying as much. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. That he's got learning to do. I mean, that was always the risk of hiring a first-time head coach. And it seems to me that he takes lessons and learns from them. Like, he's not – Marcus Freeman to me does not seem like the kind of guy that's like too arrogant to not learn from his mistakes. He's going to take opportunities and losses and figure out ways to get better from them. And I think he needs to, because I don't think frankly, I think you could argue that Mike Denbrock is a better offensive coordinator and Al Golden's a better defensive coordinator than Marcus Freeman is a head coach right now. Marcus Freeman's a great recruiter, and he's continued to show that. And I think he has the potential to be a very good coach. And he's working to continue to prove that. Brian says 86 on the roster. Do you think we'll know who the 85 plus Buckner are soon? Well, Buckner is a walk-on. He's not getting a scholarship. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen with the 86th spot. My thought would be that when we got the news that Tyson Ford and Aiden Gobira were medical retirements, that there would be a third person there. So I'm not sure. I mean, I guess there's always the chance that you could revisit some of the walk-ons who are given scholarships. It's a little bit of a faux pas to sort of take one of those away from those guys. But they're sort of given to them on a yearly basis. So that is possible. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to that 80 from 86 to go to 85 by the time class starts, but I'm sure it'll get worked out. I think there's confidence within the program that they're not in a bad spot, and they may already know what's going to happen, and it just hasn't happened officially yet. So we'll see how that all plays out. All right. Well, that will do it for this week's show. Like I mentioned earlier, I will be taking some vacation next week, but Eric Hansen has lined up a special guest to continue Football Never Sleeps without me. Just make sure you don't give him a hard time if he's struggling with the technology, but I think he'll do just fine. As a reminder, if you're not a subscriber to our website, we hope you take advantage of the 30-day free trial with the promo code NDYT, which is exclusive to you guys here on YouTube when you sign up for that premium access and premium analysis and premium recruiting coverage, all the premium you can get. I really think you'll appreciate the coverage that we provide over on InsideNDSports.com if you have not taken advantage of our premium access yet. That'll do it for me here in Jacksonville. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, bearing with me. Hopefully this went well. We can maybe consider, maybe not as a Football Never Sleeps show, but maybe this is there's another YouTube show that we can do when we go through clips. If it's easier when it's my footage, I can go through it. I can't sort of pull. I think there's certainly TV restrictions on if I were to pull clips from games and put them on YouTube like this, but I think that worked well. Hopefully that came across well and was digestible for you guys on the other end. But yeah, that'll be it for me. Thanks to Legacy Heating and Air for continuing to support the show, and thank you to you all for supporting the show as well. And I won't see you guys before then, so have a happy 4th of July.